Okay, so we're on air again, and we're going to talk a little bit about charting. Now, I'm not going to go too far into charting because Mickey Bokel does a great job of it in the TQM class. I believe most of you will probably be taking that. So this is actually her material, so I'm giving her credit for it. She let me borrow it. And we're going to briefly go over some of the charts that you might want to put in your PowerPoint. Now, you can download this. She gave me permission to post it, so you go to that shared folder and you can download this presentation to look at. Okay? Probably won't be any of this on the test. It's more for your special projects than it is for anything else. I may ask you what a bar chart is or something like that. We'll see. So, let's see. I know everybody's seen one of these because you even had, I'm sure you had them in grade school, charting in grade school. So histograms are column graphs that display a static picture process of behavior. They usually take about 50 to 100 data points. A good, stable histogram. Now let's just use an example. Well, this one uses, you have a 55-gallon jug of pennies, a barrel of pennies. People try to guess how many thousands of pennies are in the barrel. And this shows it should be a good guessing average, as in a bell curve. How many people have heard of a bell curve? Been grading on the curve. Okay. Well, if you have a really good set of data that's variable, let's just use an example of I don't know, tolerances on a block of wood. Okay, you're making a block of wood 4 by 4 inches square. Well, if you have a good process, most of your blocks of wood will be right here in the middle. Some will be out here. They'll be a little bit oversized. Some will be a little bit undersized by a few thousandths of an inch. But it should pretty much stay. Most of your blocks of wood are going to be 4 inches. And that forms a bell curve that tells you that it's a pretty standard deviation here. This is, everybody follow where I'm going? Middle would be a 4-inch block of wood. This would be a little oversized. This will be a little undersized. These represent the number of samples you have taken of all your blocks of wood that you made. Okay? If all your blocks of wood that were supposed to be 4 inches were all under 4 inches, you got a problem. Okay? Because, I mean, you make a block of wood, they're never going to be 4 inches. There's a little moisture and they're going to swell, right? So it's going to be variable. So a histogram is just a way to show data over time. It shows your process. Middle point is your mean. And then you have a standard deviation. It's divided up into 3 parts. You have standard deviation here, and one here, and one here. All right? It's positive deviation. Okay? Notice a little symbol right here. That's a sigma. Well, you have 3 positive deviations, and you have 3 negative deviations. Right here. Hence the term 6 sigma. That's the whole point of 6 sigma. Is that you would measure your process and you would keep your deviations, which is, well, I'm not going into calculating standard deviation. Maybe in here. But let's just say that we split it up into 3 little parts, right? if we're running within tolerance, then all of our deviations should be plus or minus 1 standard deviation. Should be right here next to the center point. Here's our 4 inches. We'll have a few points out here. We'll have a few points out here. So if we're running in control, everything will be in the center. But if we start getting deviations, if our mean is actually moved over here, then we have a problem. We're not in control of our process. We talked about the bell-shaped curve. So, how to create a histogram? It's really easy. You put the data in order from lowest to highest. Now, that data, when we're talking data, that could be a block. I have a block of wood, and it's 4.01 inches. It's 4.02 inches. Well, that's too much data to understand, so we're going to make categories of that data. Okay? We're going to say, I have so many blocks of wood that were from 4 inches to 4.10 inches. And I have so many blocks of wood that were from 3.9 inches to 4 inches. Does that make sense? We're going to take all of this data, all these numbers, and we're going to try to make a visual representation of it. So, in order to do that, we have to pick classes, all right? Which is what I just told you about picking a range. Easy way to do this is just to show you. And we just have a set of numbers, all right? And this set of numbers, in fact, I want you to get out a pen and paper. Have to write paper, that's great. You don't have to have it. But you have this set of numbers. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through here and put them in order, which it's conveniently done for you. So go ahead and write it down. We're going to actually build a histogram. Some of you can't see that. Walk up here and write it down. I would write this set of numbers down because it's already in order from lowest to highest. Wouldn't worry about that. It's already been arranged. I'll give everybody a little bit. So just write those numbers down on your piece of paper, and then make sure you leave enough room at the bottom to draw your histogram if you're going to draw it. Next, we're going to calculate the range. And you just keep writing the numbers down. But range is basically your lowest number minus your highest number. Okay? So of all these numbers, I have 39, and I have a 1. So between 1 and 39, I have 38 numbers. Okay? And this isn't too specific, but I like to round them. You're just going to round it up to the nearest whole number. It's easy. We're just going to say our range is 40. So what they did here was they took 39, subtracted 1. Oh, well, that's 38. We'll just round it up to 40 to make it easy, because we want an easy divisible number by 5. Typically, we're going to use 5 classes. Remember, these are all individual data points. They can all be measurements off something. They all represent the same measurement. That makes sense? Like this could be 0.1 out of tolerance. This piece is 0.9 out of tolerance. This is 0.10. You know, this block here is 4.01. This block is 4.09. This block is 4.1. So we're just taking individual data points and we're going to put them in groups, so we can look at it easier. So we're going to divide this histogram into 5 sections. Okay? So what do? I divide 40 by 5. So that says I have a class width of 8. All right? So draw your little box here. And how many numbers do you have that are between 1 and 8? Well, just go up there and count them. You should have 2. And you always got to go 1 decimal point over because you can't count 8. So then how many numbers do you have are between 8.01 and 16? Now where are we getting this number here? Well, I take 8, class width is 8, so 1 through 8. We got the first number down. What's 8 plus 8? 16. Add another 8. 24. Add another 8. 32. Add one more 8 is 40. See where we're getting those ranges? And we're going to find the amount of numbers that fall between those ranges right there. We're going to write the occurrence. How many times they occur in that series of numbers. Now, like Excel, you can just like type in those numbers and say, build me a histogram, and it will. I'm showing you how the manual way to do it. You can download go online and just Google like a histogram spreadsheet, and you'll find one, and it'll have a place, and you just type in the numbers, and it'll build you one. You want it. So, and the numbers are right up there. I just want you to understand where they're coming from. Everybody crystal clear where the numbers are coming from, right? Speak up. It's okay. Everybody, I'm going to look everybody in the eye. They nod their head where the numbers coming from. So there's no confusion. You in the back, look me in the eye. All right. Everybody knows where those numbers came from. And then we plot them. Okay? Well, we know we put our range on the bottom, which is 1 through 40. So the first one, I had 1 through 8. The numbers 1 through 8 appeared 2 times. So I'll go up with a bar graph right here of 2. All right. The next set of numbers appeared 4 times. I come over here. Here's my range, 8 through 16. And the numbers between 8 and 16 appeared in the series 4 times. So forth and so on until I draw a histogram. So go ahead and draw your histogram. You should actually you should have the numbers right there. The last slide. So if a histogram fits some of the data you have for your project, why don't you make one and put it in your presentation? They're not that hard to make. You know, bless you. I shall return shortly. I'm going to let you finish drawing your histogram. I'll go ahead and mute this microphone. So, anybody heard of a Pareto chart? For if you're in this program much longer, you'll get enough of charting. But Pareto charts, well, they were popular. They were made popular by the guru of lean, Mr. Joseph Duran, and it basically states the 80-20 rule that states 20% of your problems will typically represent the most opportunity for 80% of your gain. And it was kind of a selling point. He was trying to sell lean to people. Basically, that doesn't make a lot of sense what I just said, right? 20% of your problems represent 80% of your gain. Okay? We're going to clarify that here in just a second. But they give a visual representation of where you need to start to get the most bang for your buck. Okay? So, we have people that are late showing up at work. Okay? And we document that. And we see that about 50 people called into late because of traffic. And right here we see that about, I don't know, 40 people called in late because of child care. All right? Well, if we wanted people to stop being late, where do you think we would concentrate our time at to fix traffic?
Have an on-site daycare.
We can't fix traffic. Well, we could fix daycare. We could have a company daycare and provide it for our employees, right? Now, I want you to look at this. This is the cumulative percentage of this. So, if we look right here, 60% of people being late is because of these two problems, okay? Now, where does that come from? Well, if I took child care and I stacked it on top of traffic, where would that put me? That would put me right here at 60%. So 60% of my people being late is because of traffic and child care. Do you get where that goes on a Pareto chart? That's what this is what this bell curve, this curve right here represents. Okay? If I wanted to know what the other ones were, I could simply look here and see that we have public transportation, weather, oversleep, and emergency. Well, if this is 60%, then these represent 40% of my problems. Well, I can work on this one and worry about these. Well, I can't do anything about the weather. You can't do anything about emergencies. I don't know about oversleeping, but maybe public transportation. We could petition the city to put a bus stop in front of our factory, so people have a place instead of have to. Right now, our nearest bus stop is a mile away. They have to walk in the rain. So maybe we could say, hey, can you put a bus stop in front of our factory? So that's what a Pareto chart does. And it's really easy to calculate. It's not that big a deal. And it was basically used to look at a problem from a new angle, new perspective, and to put things in priority, right? Because do we want to concentrate on people oversleeping? Do we want to set up a call system to call everybody an hour before their shift to make sure they're awake? An automated call system. Not only would that be annoying, we see that that's not a big a problem as child care. So we would look here. So let's look at some actual data here. here are reasons our deliveries are late. Okay? And we don't care how late. We're just late. Right? We're just looking at their late. So, I kept up with why our deliveries are late for 6 months. Okay? And I found there were 4 times, now remember this is every time they're late. All right, we're trying to figure out the cause of our, right here, our cause was late, being late to work. Here our cause is late for delivery. So here's our problem. It's a big, broad problem. We're late. So I found that a simple checkbox that I put on the wall next to my workstation, I'm the delivery guy, that I put this up, that every time I was waiting on the product to be made, it was being late on production, I put a checkbox right there. I put a mark. So in 6 months, I was actually had late shipments because 4 times within that 6 months, I didn't have the product set in front of me to put in the box to ship out the door. All right? I found that 2 times within 6 months, I was waiting on the FedEx driver. Huh? I say something wrong?
No, she sneezed, we said, bless you.
Oh! Bless you. Way to hold up class. Good thing we're not recording the video. So, twice in the last 6 months, I'm waiting on the FedEx guy to show up. He's late. He don't show up when he's supposed to. 7 times out of the last 6 months, my forklift just broke down. Put that under vehicle maintenance. 14 times out of the last 6 months, I got a shipping order with no shipping address. And out of the last 6 months, people put the wrong labels on the package and it went to the wrong address. 12. And then you always put an other, as in my dog ate my package, my dog ate my, miscellaneous, I don't know what it is. I didn't keep up with it, but it was late, I don't remember why. So you put other. Okay? You gotta have a catch-all. You do a Pareto chart, you need to catch all. So there's always an other category. It should be the lowest occurrence if you did your job right. But, this could be like, well, I couldn't ship because we had a tornado alarm, we had a fire drill, that kind of deal. So I couldn't ship it. I missed the deadline because we had a tornado outside and had to go to the shelter. All right. So you make a category. So I want you to go ahead, get another piece of paper. Jot this stuff down, but I want you to know where these numbers come from. Our paperwork was late 14 times. Well, I get a percentage. How do I get a percentage? Well, of all the times it was late, it adds up to 43. So if I divide 43 into 14, I get 33%. Hopefully. I had to check the math on this one, but we do have some calculators. If anybody wants one, just to check it or get out your smartphone or whatever, we should have a box of calculators. Anybody wants one, you don't get it, the math is done for you. So we got 14 divided by 43 gives me 0.325, and it's not specific. I'm just going to round that up, call it 33%. The main thing is you want to make everything come out to 100%. So, misshipped, divide 43 into 12, and you get 28%. Now cumulative, back to here, is we have to keep adding it up because we're looking for the 100% reason why we're late. Everything's got to add up to 100%. First of all, can you give 110%? Can you do 200% of anything?
No.
Only the football coach can ask you for 200%. Only coach can do that because the percentage of a whole only goes to 100%. You can only have half an apple, 50% of an apple. You can't have 2 apples when you only have 1 apple. You can have 200% of an apple. That make sense? Even though you can do the math and get it up there if you want to. There's no such thing. So here we just put 33%. Well, the next one's 28, so I add 33 and 28, and I get 60. I add 60 plus 16, get 77.
Okay, where'd you get the 28?
The 28 is calculated by dividing 12 by 43. Divide 43 into 12 will give you 28%.
Right.
And then you start adding up the cumulative. So 28 plus 33 equals 61, which they just rounded it down to 60. The numbers don't have to be exactly the same. Before anybody points that out, I know that they just rounded it down and said, oh, that's 60%. So what's 60% plus 16? 76. And the reason they're rounding is because they're rounding, what they're trying to do is when they get down to here, they want to make sure it says 100. And then we have 9%, so 77 plus 9 equals 86. Well, they said that's good enough. So that's why you want to do, might have helped you. A lot of you might want to do this in pencil before you started, but you can scratch it with pen. What you want to make sure is that you only get 100% at the end. So if you have to fudge those numbers a little bit, it's not a big deal. Main thing is at the bottom we get 100%. You can just take it on page and write those numbers down. You don't have to get out a calculator. Just don't want you to understand where they're coming from. Does everybody have those numbers down? People still right. You're always going to plot these highest on the left, lowest on the right. There you plot these bar charts.
You could actually, with it marked the way it is up there, you know, and it's laid out on the side, you'll come up and you'll draw a line with that first 4 and drop down and get over those 2, and then come back up over those 7, and then over the 14, back down to the 12, and then the 4. You've got your bar chart turned on the side. That's an easy way to do it.
Yeah, that is a good point. What he's saying is you could simply draw a line over this, trace it out, and you have a bar chart.
Right. You know, for a quick reference.
Yeah. They're not in order, though. Pareto has, you gotta reorder them, but yeah, that's going to be like a histogram. Yeah. So, here we go. Well, paperwork, I missed how many times? 14. And I had a percentage of 33%. So I drew a bar at 14. Here's my total. I think my total over here was 43, and I'll just run it up to 45 to be good. So I said the total number of times I was late, we'll just run the range up to 45 on this chart. Okay? And of course, on the other side, you're going to do 0 to 100%. Why? Because that's all we have is 0 to 100%. We don't have 110%. So I have 14 times I was late because of paperwork. And that was 33% of the total time I was late was because of paperwork. Does that make sense how we're reading this chart? I was late 14 times because of paperwork. That accounted for 33% of the total times I was late in 6 months. That's our diagram. All right. The next highest category was misshipped. And what's that number? I know some people come on here. 28%, but what's the number of misshipped? How many times did I misship?
Wow.
So I misshipped 12 times, and that was 28%. But if I stack this on top of here, that was actually a little over 60% of my entire problem is because of paperwork and misshipped. That makes sense? So it shows how you can solve just a few problems to get the biggest bang for your buck. It puts your priorities in a list, and so forth and so on. So go ahead and kind of draw that out and understand how that works. So of course you can see that if I was going to try to fix my problems, where would I start? The paperwork. Because that takes up 60% of the reason I'm late on my deliveries. I get that fixed, and then, of course, maybe I'll worry about the others. And when you plot these points, all you do is you draw a dot right here, okay? And then just connect the dots to the line. So just put your dot here. When you get all your dots in there, you just draw the line across. Connect the dots. That's where we got the...
So what are the dots? The dots.
The dots, that is the cumulative percent at that point right here. See the first one? Well, it's just itself because there's nothing in front of it. It's 33%. So that's right here. This one is 60% for misshipped, right? Because I had 28% plus 33, and we just rounded up to 60%. Then I put the dot here.
Okay.
And then I put the next dot. I put the next dot. And remember, you can download this too. But here's your notes to pencil in where those numbers come from. It helps if you just know where to plug the numbers at. So that's why I make it work out. Of course, you have the answers in front of you, but that's the way I do it. bring enough chips for everybody?
Crackers. People almost want.
All right. Everybody kind of got this down? Look at me. Look me in the eyes and nod your head. Okay. So now you understand a Pareto chart. It's not that big a deal. So the next time you go in a meeting and the engineer comes up and he throws a Pareto chart or production, and you can go, I know what he's talking about. Then you can call him out if he doesn't. All right? So here's how you do it, but it's easier just to walk you through it. Here's another one. Okay. Now there's tons of graphs, and we're not going into Six Sigma and variation graphs, but I'm going to flip through them quickly. You can download the PowerPoint and look at it. Basically, what's a graph for? Well, if I handed you a spreadsheet full of numbers, would that make any sense to you? The whole point of a graph is so it can visually show somebody and make sense of a set of numbers. Okay? You know, pie chart, that's a biggie. How much pie do I have left? Here's a pie, and I have, a little under, I don't know, 3/4 of it left. This could be 3 million widgets, but I don't care if I only have, or this could be 4 million widgets, I don't care if I have, you know, 3,485 widgets left. I just need a general number, okay? So that's why I use a pie chart. This is how much money we made out of $4 million. Right here is what we spent was our overhead, and this is our profit. Pretty good. A line or trend chart, okay? You can put multiple sets of data on it, but it basically, as the name suggests, it shows a trend. This is our fill rate. I don't know why that goes to 110%, but here's our goal, is 100%. Well, in January, we filled, you know, 93% of our Coke bottles. The other were like misfills and like thrown away. Well, in February, we did a little better. You know, our goal is to fill 100% of our Coke bottles coming down the line with Coke, not have any missed bottle. So this shows that we, between January and November, we have steadily improved our performance. Column charts, you know, this shows a distribution of different types of computers. You know, we have desktops, notebooks, I don't know what AIO stands for, but tablets and phones, and where do people own the most tablets? The West Coast, West America, Central America, or the East Coast? They own the most tablets on the West Coast. That makes sense? It's comparing sets of data. It's a way to represent, you know, they also own the most desktop PCs on the West Coast. Who has the most mobile phones or smartphones? Well, more people have smartphones on the East Coast. You could take a bar chart, turn it on its side. That's all that is. This is simply some different data plotted against each other. Housing values combined in capital cities. Yeah, that's not good. This is what I want to go to. You have scatter plots. And this is plotting the husband's age by the wife's age. We all know that most people marry somebody their own age, right? Except for this guy. This guy was about 55, and he married an older woman who was almost 65. This guy married an older woman who was 80 years old, and he was about 70. Now, if Hugh Hefner was on there, it would be over here. You have a point right up here. You actually have a point right. Yeah, you have a point right here. This is where Hugh Hefner is, right here. He's actually got about 5 or 10 right here. Okay. Actually, I don't think our chart is going high enough. It'd probably be down here because we only go to 30 on it. So that's where Hugh Hefner would be. Okay. And that one's pretty easy. You just take the 2 points, you put one on the X and one on the Y, and you stick the data in there. It shows a correlation between 2 points of data. Okay? Alright? So if my block is 4 inches wide, but we're not worried about that. We'll just say 4 inches high by 4 inches wide. We can start plotting that data, and we could see that if our block was oversized, it was oversized the same amount every time. If I had one of these plots out of whack, I would see that that's kind of odd. Why is this block 4 inches wide but 3.5 inches tall? That kind of deal. It shows you stuff out of sequence. Correlation. When 2 sets of data are strongly linked together, we say they have a high correlation. So, correlation is positive. When one goes up, the other goes up. And correlation is negative. When one goes up, one goes down. Alright? That makes sense? And correlation of data. You can't, if one goes up, one has to go down. Here are some examples of correlation. Perfect positive correlation. You know, you're never going to see that. But we have high positive, low positive. These are all over the place, so they don't have anything to do with one another. Right? These are little scatter diagrams. You can plot data. Alright? If you want to know the ambient temperature outside of the plant compares to my tolerance on a widget I'm making, right? Well, I would plot the outside temperature of the plant and then look at the measurement on my equipment, right? Because the hotter it gets, metal expands. Okay? So if it's hotter outside, it's hotter inside. And you know, you can find out the correlation. When we have 120 degrees outside on the roof, we are overshooting our product by 0.2 inches. So what do I do in the summer? I narrow my adjustment down by 0.2 inches to compensate for it. Have low negative. See the chart going this way. On high negative correlation, perfect negative correlation. Fishbone diagram. Now you might want to do one of these. They're kind of a brainstorming diagram. But here's your problem. And as the name suggests, I draw a central line. I label it by 5 or 6 categories. Okay? They are method, management, material, man, measurement, machine. Okay? So if I have a problem, this is brainstorming. Okay? We gotta put stuff in categories. So management. Well, one of the reasons I come up for why, I don't know, why is shift 2 always running behind shift 1? Okay. Well, maybe under policy, well, shift 2 is where all the inexperienced people go. they sign on because nobody wants to work on shift 2. So management's policy is all new hires must start on shift 2. So it's a policy, okay? Why do we have more maintenance issues on shift 2? Because they're inexperienced and they tear up the equipment more. You know, we're just brainstorming here. Mother Nature's environment. So, basically when you're going to brainstorm the cause of a problem, you work through each category as a group. You take the crazy ones out. Because you can put crazy ideas in a brainstorm, then you go back and review it and say, that probably won't work. And then you discuss the final diagram. You look for the causes that you think are most critical to follow up, and mark causes you plan to investigate. So, we already talked about the 5 whys. When you remember when we had that discussion? Why are you late? Why are you late? So those are the questions you have to ask yourself. Let's, I'm looking for, so let's do a fishbone diagram. When you order your sandwich at the Subway on Grand Avenue through the drive-thru, it takes more than 10 minutes. Something is usually missing or wrong on the order. Working with your group, create a fishbone diagram and use the 5 ways of brainstorming. So everybody draw, just get in your work groups, your special projects group. And I will even, actually I'm going to stop the recording right now. That's all we're going to talk about. So I'm going to go ahead and stop that.